Hi, I'm Ann Webb, Policy Director with Common Cause North Carolina. And these are 5 things you need to know about North Carolina politics this week. Number 1. North Carolina lawmakers have concluded most of their work for 2023. And so, in this edition, we're taking a look back at some of the major issues in this year's legislative session. The first thing to know is that Republicans had supermajorities in both the State House and Senate, meaning that they could most likely override any veto by Democratic Governor Roy Cooper. In turn, Republican legislative leaders pushed through a number of controversial bills this year, including restrictions on abortion access, anti-LGBTQ bills, and anti-voter legislation, while also making power grabs to give themselves more control over state government. Number 2. Legislative leaders imposed laws that hurt North Carolina voters, including restrictions on absentee voting by mail and barriers to same-day voter registration. And they forced radical changes to the state's Board of Elections, which could lead to partisan gridlock and threatens to cut early voting. Those anti-voter laws are now headed to court, challenged in several lawsuits. Number 3. This year's session was filled with power grabs by legislative leaders, which raised serious concerns about undercutting our state's system of checks and balances. To limit the governor's power, legislative leaders stripped the executive power to appoint members to a number of state boards and commissions, including the State Board of Elections and the County Boards of Elections. Those power grabs are being challenged in court. And to increase their own power over North Carolina courts, legislative leaders gave themselves the power to appoint a slate of judges. Number 4. A handful of legislators haggled behind closed doors for months over the state's budget, delaying much-needed teacher pay raises and Medicaid expansion. Ultimately, the budget was passed into law, but it was filled with a number of bad policies totally unrelated to state spending, such as provisions that would let lawmakers hide important documents from the public, including records dealing with how our state's voting districts are crafted. Number 5. Speaking of those voting districts, Republican legislators drew new congressional and legislative electoral maps in secret during this year's session. That redistricting process was a total failure of transparency and an insult to the people of North Carolina. What emerged are extreme gerrymanders that attack the right of voters to choose their representatives. Those discriminatory gerrymanders could yet be challenged in court. Tune in to our 5 Things to Know episode next week, as we'll take a closer look at the new districts and how they impact communities across the state. Those were 5 things you need to know about North Carolina politics this week. Find us anytime at commoncausenc.org.